At 0418 in the early morning darkness, a massive Russian convoy was moving through the forests of occupied territory, heading toward the front lines with new supplies, ammunition, fuel tankers, armored vehicles, and reinforcements. The convoy stretched for nearly 5 kilometers, carrying equipment worth tens of millions of dollars, equipment Russia desperately needed to stabilize collapsing positions in the area. Russian commanders believed they were moving under perfect cover. The roads were unlit. The vehicles were radio silent, and thick cloud cover made it impossible for satellites to see them. But hidden far above, beyond the cloud layer, Ukrainian surveillance drones were already watching everything. And minutes later, the Russians would realize they were in the kill zone of one of Ukraine's most accurate drone strike units. What happened next would turn a routine Russian resupply mission into a burning line of wreckage spread across the road. Before we continue, if you enjoy these detailed battlefield breakdowns, make sure you subscribe right now. Your support helps us bring more updates from the front. The convoy consisted of more than 40 military vehicles. At the front were 2 armored personnel carriers clearing the path. Behind them came fuel tankers, several large transport trucks filled with ammunition crates, and a command vehicle carrying officers coordinating the movement. At the rear, 2 more armored vehicles protected the tail end. From the Russian perspective, it looked like a safe movement. No Ukrainian jets were in the air. No artillery range threatened the road, and the forests on both sides provided cover from long-range drones. Russian officers inside the command truck were relaxed. They believed Ukrainian forces were too far away to detect them. The convoy kept a constant speed of 40 kilometers per hour, slow enough to maintain formation, but fast enough to reduce time on open roads. What the Russians did not know was that Ukraine had been tracking them for nearly an hour. A high-altitude drone had picked up the heat signatures of the vehicles moving in a straight line. Ukrainian commanders quickly understood what this convoy was carrying and sent in a strike drone team. The strike drones used for the mission were long-range FPV units modified with thermal cameras and extended batteries. They were lightweight, fast, and extremely accurate when used by experienced operators. At exactly 0427, the first Ukrainian drone dropped altitude and began approaching the convoy from the rear. The operators knew the Russians always placed fuel trucks toward the middle of the formation, and an explosion there could create a chain reaction. The drone flew just meters above the tree line, using the forest to hide its profile. Every few seconds, it adjusted its speed to avoid being detected by Russian radio scanners. The drone camera displayed a clear sight, a long line of headlights in the distance. The operator took a deep breath and continued closing the distance. He knew the entire mission would depend on precise hits. One wrong angle, and the Russians could scatter into the forest and escape. This is exactly why you should subscribe to the channel. We break down these operations in a simple way, so everyone can understand what's really happening on the front lines. Make sure you don't miss the next breakdown. At 0431, the drone locked onto a fuel tanker. It was carrying nearly 20,000 liters of fuel, more than enough to create a massive fireball. The operator stabilized the drone, checked wind direction, and prepared for impact. Inside the Russian vehicle, the driver had no idea death was approaching from behind. The road noise masked the sound of the drone's propellers, so the tanker continued moving forward without adjusting speed. The final 10 seconds were tense. The drone dropped to just 3 meters above the road and approached the rear panel of the tanker at full speed. In the last moment, the operator pointed the drone at the fuel tank's weak point. Then, the screen flashed white. The explosion lit up the entire forest. A massive fireball erupted, sending flames high into the air. The shockwave hit nearby vehicles, and the convoy immediately came to a stop. Drivers slammed their brakes. Soldiers jumped out and scrambled into the woods. Russian officers inside the command vehicle grabbed their radios and tried to figure out what had just happened. The convoy was now exposed, burning, and unable to move. The explosion created total chaos. Thick black smoke filled the air, blocking visibility. The Russian soldiers were shouting orders, but no one knew what the real threat was. They had not seen the drone coming, which made them fear more were in the area. The convoy's rear guard tried to turn their APC around, but the burning tanker blocked the road, trapping them. Russian soldiers attempted to fire into the sky, shooting blindly at the smoke. They expected helicopters, jets, or artillery, but they were facing something far more precise and harder to stop. Less than 2 minutes after the first hit, a second Ukrainian drone appeared. It approached from the opposite side, flying low over the treetops. Russian soldiers spotted it too late and opened fire, but the drone was already too close. The operator steered it toward a truck carrying ammunition crates. When the drone hit, a series of secondary explosions followed. Ammunition detonated like fireworks, sending shrapnel across the convoy. Soldiers dove for cover as burning fragments rained down. The forest around the road caught fire. Russian commanders realized they had walked into a deadly trap. Ukrainian operators continued launching drones one after another. Their goal was simple: destroy the most valuable vehicles first, then finish off anything that survived. A third drone hit a communication truck, which eliminated the convoy's ability to call for backup. Russian officers tried to use handheld radios, but the interference from the fire and explosion made communication impossible. The fourth drone went straight for the command vehicle. The Ukrainian operator waited for the perfect angle, then dove directly into the cabin. The explosion killed or wounded several officers instantly. With leadership gone, the convoy lost all coordination. Vehicles crashed into each other while trying to escape. Some soldiers attempted to push damaged vehicles off the road, but it was too late. The kill zone was fully active. By now, the flames from the fuel tanker were almost 15 meters high. The heat was so intense that the paint on nearby vehicles was melting. The forest fire continued spreading, creating even more panic. Every few minutes, Ukrainian operators launched another drone to strike any moving target. The convoy was collapsing piece by piece. If you're still watching, this is the perfect moment to hit the subscribe button. These operations show how modern warfare has changed, and your support helps us cover them in depth. After the sixth strike, Russian survivors tried to retreat into the forest, abandoning their vehicles. Ukrainian drones switched to pursuit mode, using thermal cameras to track soldiers hiding behind trees. But instead of targeting individuals, the operators aimed for the last major vehicle, a large transport truck carrying artillery shells. The drone approached from the side, avoiding the flames. The operator guided it under the branch line and flew parallel to the truck. In the last few meters, he tilted the drone upward to strike the center of the cargo area. The explosion that followed was the largest of the entire mission. The artillery shells ignited, causing a rolling chain reaction. For nearly 20 seconds, explosions continued one after another. When the smoke cleared, the entire center of the convoy was gone. The road had been ripped apart, leaving a crater several meters wide. The forest canopy was shredded, and twisted metal lay scattered across the area. By dawn, the entire Russian convoy was destroyed. At least 20 vehicles were burning. Several more were overturned or blown apart. The road was unusable, and the surviving soldiers had fled deep into the forest with no communication, no supplies, and no transport. Russian reinforcements had to be redirected to rescue them, leaving frontline units without the urgently needed supplies that were supposed to arrive that morning. Satellite images taken later confirmed the scale of the destruction. Dozens of black scorch marks lined the road. Crumpled fuel tankers, shattered ammunition trucks, and destroyed APCs were clearly visible. Russian channels struggled to explain the incident, claiming it was sabotage or artillery. But the precise damage patterns clearly showed drone strikes. This operation demonstrated once again how Ukraine uses small, inexpensive drones to destroy multi-million-dollar Russian assets. It also revealed how vulnerable Russian logistics remain, especially at night. Drones have changed the battlefield completely. Speed, accuracy, and surprise are more important than brute force. If you want more breakdowns like this, make sure to subscribe. We bring clear, simple, accurate updates from the front lines every week.